Good morning. It's good to be here today to provide you with an update on the financial condition of Basin Electric, along with a couple of our financial initiatives. Powering together, the theme makes a great deal of sense to me. I, like many of you, were raised on a farm, so I think you can relate. Persistence and optimism were a part of our everyday life. Our livelihoods depended on it. The forecasts, the markets, all the variables upon which our success hinged, all saw highs and lows, all saw uncertainty. Year after year, we focused on what we could control, how we managed costs, how we worked together, how we chose to view the road ahead. We powered ahead together, driven by common goals. We grew food, we sustained life, we provided for our families. The parallels to our business today are very similar. We've powered through the past and will do so going forward. Let's take a few minutes now to take a look at that journey and what we're going to see on the road ahead. We'll start with a glance in the rearview mirror for a look at the past year's journey. We once again retained Deloitte to conduct the annual independent audit of our financials. The audit started in September of last year when the audit plan was presented to the board. That was followed by a couple of weeks of interim field work by Deloitte staff in December. Staff from Deloitte then spent the entire month of February in Bismarck reviewing our books and records. The audits were ultimately reviewed and approved by the board at their March meeting. Once again, I'm pleased to report that Deloitte issued clean or unqualified opinions on the financial statements of Dakota Coal, Dakota Gas, Souris Valley Pipeline, and ultimately Basin Electric on a consolidated basis. The complete results for the 2018 audit were published in Basin Electric's annual report, which was mailed in April. In addition to the financial narrative and a review of many of our current projects and initiatives, the annual report includes Basin Electric's consolidated financial statements and associated footnotes, as well as that very important and valuable auditor's opinion. For those of you who are interested, you can also access the annual report as well as our consolidated quarterly financials on our website. The audit is an exhaustive process and then one that has a number of staff working many evenings and weekends. I would like to thank staff from throughout the cooperative who have historically been involved in the audit process and will shortly be involved in the audit of our 2019 financials. Their efforts are greatly appreciated. Here are just a few of the highlights from those 2018 financials. Assets stood at $7.4 billion as of December 31st. This is after the write-down of the coal gasification assets at the Synfuels plant. The consolidated net margins and earnings were $64.5 million. This is down from the $72.3 million we saw in 2017. It's important to note, however, that this does reflect expensing all the costs associated with the reduction in force, yet retaining $75 million of deferred revenue. On the electric side of the business, Basin Electric recorded $1.6 billion in member sales and $275.8 million of non-member revenue in 2018. On the subsidiary side, Dakota Gas recorded a net loss of $397.8 million. This does, however, reflect the $298.8 million of impairment of the coal gasification assets I referenced just a minute ago. Moving on to capital credit allocations and retirements, in March, $230.4 million was allocated to the membership. This brings the total allocation to the membership to over $1.3 billion since 1966. In December of last year, we returned $30 million of the 2001 allocated capital credits to our members. And on Monday, the board approved retiring another $31.7 million. This represents 1/30 of our total undistributed margins of approximately $950.3 million. The retirement will encompass the remaining undistributed margin from 2001, all of 2002's undistributed margin, and just under $4.8 million of the 2003 undistributed margin. Inclusive of this distribution, a total of $311.3 million of patronage has been returned to the membership. After this patronage retirement, since the year 2000, Basin Electric will have returned $720.1 million to the membership via either patronage capital retirements, bill credits, and power cost adjustments. Now, a quick look at the 2019 financials through September shows Basin Electric had an after-tax margin of $113.4 million. Electricity sales to members were approximately $1.2 billion, while electricity sales to others were $104 million. DGC's September year-to-date after-tax loss was $34.3 million. While still much larger than we'd like to see, this is a significant improvement from last year's loss through September, which was $103.5 million. I think it's important to note that this is even with SNG and Ontario revenue being down a combined $17 million for the first 9 months of this year compared to the same period last year. The major components of the reduction in the after-tax loss at DGC of $69.2 million for the first 9 months of this year compared to that same period from last year is due to increased urea and diesel exhaust revenue, totally offsetting the reduction in SNG and tar oil revenue. And second, total expenses being down $66.7 million for the first 9 months of this year as compared to last year. Labor expenses alone were down over $25.7 million from where they were 1 year ago. Including projections for the remainder of the year, we're now anticipating consolidated end-of-year after-tax margins and earnings of $76.3 million. This is after the projected deferral of $72 million of revenue. Let's now shift our focus to the road ahead. The 2020 to 2029 financial forecast was approved by the board in September. Some highlights from that forecast include the following. The Class A member rate will be decreased by 1 mil per kilowatt hour beginning on January 1st. In addition, among others, the load incentive rate will be extended for 1 year, and the electric heat rate will be held steady in 2020. The forecast also shows $1.5 billion of bill credits to the membership throughout the 10-year forecast period. Finally, with $72 million projected to be deferred this year, and with $53 million assumed to be deferred in 2020, the revenue deferral balance will stand at $200 million. Now, numerous staff from throughout the cooperative spend a tremendous amount of time and effort in preparing the long-range forecasts that help guide your cooperative's decisions. Darla Miller and Mike Zimmerman are just two of the financial planning and forecasting staff that are working closer than ever with their colleagues at the power plants to build more accurate forecasts. Let's hear briefly from them on how they're doing just that.
We're learning the value of going to the people, the subject matter experts, and how that can really enhance our forecast.
As a department, need to do our part in educating, bringing the message out from headquarters to the plants, and really stressing the importance of what they do and the information they provide and the numbers that they provide, how it really impacts Basin as a whole. You know, they may see it as a small part, but there's a lot of small parts that make up this big piece that is Basin Electric.
And so we made a decision that we would make a tremendous effort to make more frequent visits, to make visits during outage, for example, and we're all committed to this.
You know, they plan for maintenance based on, you know, running a certain way, and when that doesn't happen, you know, it translates into, you know, more dollars, you know, both for the coal and the gas. You know, but the gas is based on starts and hours, and obviously as they're running more starts, more hours, you know, that maintenance is varying widely from what we originally planned, and so it's really forcing us to take a harder look at our planning and what's going to happen. There's a conscious effort on the part of the plant people that they know that, you know, everybody needs to do their part in, you know, keeping Basin at a low-cost service provider.
We really try to focus on the big drivers of cost or big drivers of value. Is that to take a step back as an analyst in our group to hone in on those significant costs and really get to the bottom of what's driving those costs.
This more ongoing collaboration is something we look to keep up and to do in the future too, because we've seen success, and I think it's a good product. It's a way to bring everybody into the fold. It's not just us at headquarters trying to dictate what we think it should be. It's getting the buy-in from the subject matter experts, you know, on what really is happening out there.
I think more than ever right now is that we have a commitment to the customer at the end of the line.
An important factor in maintaining a stable financial position into the future is our relationship with the rating agencies. We communicate regularly with Fitch Ratings, Standard & Poor's, and Moody's Investor Service. For a number of years, our visit with the representative of the agencies have included members of the board of directors. The agencies are well aware of the challenges we face, particularly with DGC, as well as the difficult choices and efforts we've taken to reduce costs, including the reduction in the labor force and the impairment of the coal gasification assets at DGC. These efforts were well received by the agencies. This past spring, Fitch Ratings and S&P changed Basin Electric's outlook, which had been negative since 2016, to stable. We saw the impact of our strong credit ratings along with lower interest rates in May when we refinanced $150 million of tax-exempt debt associated with the solid waste facilities at the Dry Fork Station. These bonds, which were originally issued in 2009, carried an initial interest rate of 5.75%. The refinanced bonds now have an interest rate of 3.625%. The reduction in the interest rate alone will result in pure interest expense savings of over $60 million over the course of the remaining 20-year term of the bonds. Going forward, we must be cognizant of how the criteria used by the rating agencies are evolving. All three agencies that issue ratings reviews of the cooperative now include environmental, social, and governance factors, known as ESG factors in the industry, in their ratings reviews. These factors include such things as greenhouse gas emissions, climate change, health and safety, employee relations and working conditions, along with board governance and risk management. When we visit the rating agencies, as well as the banks that participate in our credit facilities again the first week in December, we'll be addressing our commitment to these various ESG factors. Numerous banks and some insurance companies are also taking a stand on environmental principles, showing a marked reduced interest in conducting business with carbon-intensive industries like utilities, such as Basin Electric. According to a September 22nd Reuters article, a third of the global banking industry has adopted new UN-backed responsible banking principles to fight climate change. This will undoubtedly result in shifts away from doing business with those entities that derive at least a portion of their revenue from fossil fuels. The UN principles include curbing climate change, increasing positive impacts on people and the environment, encouraging sustainable practices, and being transparent and accountable. In addition, international coalitions such as Unfriend Coal are putting pressure on the insurance industry to stop insuring or investing funds in coal assets as a way to discourage the development or even the maintenance of existing assets. Join me now in watching this video segment to get a better feel for their messaging.
So we are continuing this history of activism against the funding and investment and financing of coal.
A new coal plant needs two things. They need finance and they need an insurance.
There's a certain brilliance about going after insurance, because there's the one place in society where you clean up all those things that aren't priced into the system. You know, someone has to pay for them eventually.
The reinsurance industry have been fully cognizant of climate change's existential threat to everything they've ever underwritten for decades.
If you can't insure your house, you know there's a problem and you'll think twice about buying that house. If coal becomes uninsurable, if major insurance companies walk away from that sector, as an investor, you will think twice.
The coal industry can't actually finance their projects without the insurance industry underwriting.
Do you want to insure companies who have business propositions, investments, machines, products which are not contributing to the sustainability or to the resilience of our society?
Unfortunately, several insurance companies we currently do business with are also actively adopting environmental policies in which they will either reduce their exposure to or stop insuring coal assets completely. This is an issue we'll continue to monitor, as we know it will have an impact on our business going forward. One area that I haven't reported on much in the past is security. On the finance side of the ledger, we're seeing an increase in the number of cases of attempted check fraud. In just 2 months, December of last year and January of this year, we experienced 57 fraud attempts. While a few attempts are normal, we sure haven't experienced anything of this magnitude ever before. On January 7th alone, we had 30 fraudulent checks presented against one of our checking accounts. Some were rather crude, but a few had a format quite similar to the look of our checks. In some cases, they even had the proper check sequence number. For years, we've been using a product called Positive Pay, which is offered by our main money center bank, JP Chase. Each day, we send an encrypted file to Chase. The file contains a fair amount of detail on each check, such as payee, dollar amount, and the date the check was issued. As checks come into Chase for payment, Chase compares them to the encrypted file and holds any that either don't match or look suspect. They then forward copies of the suspect checks to Basin Electric staff for review and final approval before either honoring or rejecting the check or checks in question. Now, I'm happy to report that thanks to our relationship with Chase, along with the protections we have in place, we have yet to lose any funds due to check fraud. Also under the umbrella of financial services is the Information Services and Technology Division. IS&T played an active role in the cooperative's first ever compliance audit for Critical Infrastructure Protection, or CIP. The audit was conducted by the Midwest Reliability Organization in August to ensure compliance with the reliability standards set by the North American Electric Reliability Council, or NERC. The audit looked at the cyber and physical security initiatives we currently have in place. Personnel from IS&T involved in the audit encompassed the operational technology, network, and telecom divisions. Other areas across the cooperative involved in the audit were personnel from security and response services, as well as the transmission division. Now, I'm happy to report that no significant findings or deficiencies were noted. Preparing for and going through the audit was a major undertaking that took a lot of dedicated staff time. A sincere thank you to all those involved in the audit. It was truly a team effort. Another initiative many staff from IS&T, Security Response, and Transmission participated in earlier this year was an assessment by the Office of Energy Infrastructure Security, a division of FERC. This completely voluntary assessment was a collaborative, non-compulsory exercise. I want to be perfectly clear, it wasn't an audit. The primary purpose of the assessment was to promote a secure and resilient infrastructure by sharing information and developing and implementing best practices. Basically, we were looking to identify areas of concern, develop actionable recommendations, and then work to implement those actions in order to promote a positive change to the security posture of the cooperative. We found the exercise to be extremely valuable, and this effort goes hand in hand with the cyber initiative Paul mentioned earlier this morning. Now, risk is an intrinsic part of financial management, and Basin Electric has a number of policies in place to guide our tolerance as it relates to the products Basin Electric and DGC buy and sell. Yet we often ask ourselves if we can make those policies stronger. We determined in September of last year that the answer was yes. We hired a consultant, KPMG, to assess our risk management policies and recommend any improvements. KPMG interviewed all the directors, the members of the Risk Management Committee, as well as personnel from both the front and middle offices to better understand each group's risk tolerance and to note any differences between the groups. We also work to create a risk appetite statement that more accurately represents the board's and management's appetite for commodity risk. As a result of the engagement, staff is in the process of developing more robust profit and loss reports, as well as maintaining enhanced position reporting related to the natural gas transactions with Basin Electric and DGC. Staff plans to finalize and begin sharing these new profit and loss and position reports with the board and management in early 2020. Moving to the investment side of the business, one of the great things about cooperatives is our willingness to work together and pool our resources. A shining example of this in the Basin Electric family is the Member Investment Program, or MIP for short. Currently, approximately 1/3 of the cooperative's membership participates in the MIP. Basin Electric pools the funds from the membership into larger investments that then receive a higher interest rate than members could otherwise receive when investing on their own. This is reflected in the record level of participation in the program. On September 30th, the Member Investment Program stood at $292.3 million. While noteworthy, a new all-time record was set just a couple days earlier on September 27th, when the balance in the program reached $311.6 million. For the first time at an annual meeting, staff from the Treasury Division are hosting a booth in the exhibit hall. They invite you to stop by their booth to learn more about the Member Investment Program and take a chance at their version of the Wheel of Fortune with hopes of winning a prize. Now, one of the most enjoyable aspects of this job is seeing people grow, develop, and ultimately share their enthusiasm. This energy really does power us forward. I want to share a video segment with you from one of our summer interns, Victoria Govin. You'll see this energy and enthusiasm in full force.
The knowledge I have gained from this internship, I can just, it puts me one step ahead is what it does. I mean, I've learned so much, more than what you learn in the textbook. It really surprised me just to see how much Basin expands into different states and how much they actually do for their members and so many different people and so many different areas. So the biggest thing I learned during my internship is how accurate you have to be in the work that you do and how dependable other people are on the work that you do. I would recommend this internship to others because the door is so wide open. I mean, if you want to learn anything, someone is there to teach you and willing to teach you. So the opportunities are endless here at Basin. For the people that are interested in interning here, I would say to them, don't hesitate to put that application in. It's been such a wonderful experience being an intern here, and I mean, you wouldn't regret being here at all. It's a wonderful opportunity. So 3 words I would use to describe my internship is exciting, challenging, but yet rewarding. It's just been great. It's just been like the best summer ever, and I've learned so much, and I'll just carry everything I've learned with me for my future career. And I hope to come back.
It's been a busy year, and we've covered a lot of ground that has taken the efforts of many who have responded, as they always have, with persistence, a positive attitude, and as always, the cooperative spirit. So once again, I can proudly report that in the opinion of management and with the concurrence of the board, Basin Electric is in extremely sound financial condition and stands ready to meet the needs of you, our members, now and for years to come. With that, thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.